Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. We are here today because the 4 starter classes have all received a little buff. So I thought, you know what, let's go through, do some soloing, let's stick on Elysium, let's stick on Dauntless, and let's just go for it, see what sort of comparisons we can get, and if any of these are actually going to be worth using. I'm just scrolling through the actual changes, so if you're interested in any of these, please do pause the screen, have a little read as and when we go through it. I'll also ping a link down below in the description so you can go and read through this yourself. Dragon Slayer class has also had a change, we'll look at that one shortly. However, the majority of the changes are mostly to durations with the skills. I will read out some of these as we go through some of the little clips we're going to show off. However, let us begin with Warrior class, and that is going to be the base version of it. So let's see what sort of damage we can expect against the Doom Overlord. Bear in mind, these classes are as free as you can get. You literally pick them at the start of the game, so they're not quite going to be on our Void High Lord Legion Revenant standard. Let's just quickly talk about the specific changes then that have happened to Warrior. Decisive Strike has had its mana cost reduced from 15 down to 5. The damage has gone from 190% all the way down to 130% and now applies Armor Shred, reducing the target's damage resistance by 10% for 5 seconds. We have Imbalance in Strike, which is a mana cost of 30 down to 20, off balance duration of 4 seconds down to 3 seconds, and a damage increase from 60% up to 240%. Prepared Strike's mana has gone from 20 down to 10, the cooldown from 15 down to 12. If Prepared Strike was applied while On Guard was active, the Prepared Strike auto attacks will deal double damage. And then lastly, we have On Guard, no longer deals damage and is now a self-target skill. Mana cost from 30 down to 15, cooldown 30 seconds down to 10 seconds, and On Guard duration from 10 down to 5. Aggression now also increases hit chance by 10%. So this little warrior class has had some changes. Rather predictably, the minute you stick on Dauntless, your damage does start going through the roof, but it is a little bit OP. But I did like seeing how it actually performed, and you know what, the sort of damage we're getting here is what we'd expect probably off high C tier classes when we think about the soloing aspect. So you're probably not going to be getting warrior out all that often, but here is how they compared across the 3 different enhancements we had on. We're now going to move on to Healer class. Healer is probably the best starter class in my opinion, at least it's my favourite one, and it does have a nice little powerful skill 5 attack with it. As you can see, we just hit 13k. Worth remembering though, that skill 5 does do the bonus damage to undead, and obviously Doom Overlord, well, he is pretty undead. We'll go through the base class for this and Dauntless only, and if you're wondering what changes it's actually had, we have Heartbeat, damage from 10% of current HP with an increase up to 15% of current HP, mana cost from 20 down to 15, Holy, which was previously called Clear Mind, target self has gone to enemy, damage from 0% up to 350%, also deals bonus damage to undead, so that's that skill 5 we're talking about. As I've already touched on, this is probably the only starter class I'd ever really consider equipping and using. It is vaguely useful in game still, it is one of the better classes, it's not too shabby, it does decent damage. I may come back and do an individual review on this one, as like I said, I do think it's the highest tiered one if we're being totally honest, although Rogue does have an interesting mechanic with it that does make it pretty powerful later in game, but we'll come on to that later. We have the damage comparison, base class on the left and Dauntless on the right. Okay, let us have a look at Mage. So, the Mage class, this one, Fireball, let's begin with that. Damage has gone from 225% down to 120, however it now deals damage based on spell power, so the damage overall has actually, believe it or not, been increased. Damage increased from consuming Frozen Blood 75% up to 100%. You then have Ice Shard, mana cost from 18 down to 15, no longer deals bonus damage to targets affected by Scorched, now deals damage based on spell power, damage overall has been increased again, Frozen Blood haste and damage debuff 50% down to 20%. Explosion now applies detonated to targets affected by Scorched, dealing damage after 1 second after consuming it. Arcane Shield, mana cost 5 down to 0, cooldown 60 seconds down to 20 seconds, Arcane Shield duration 20 seconds to 10 seconds. You then have Hot Headed, which adds an additional 10% to your hit chance. So they're the changes that we've had on the Mage class. I did actually find this one really easy when I headed along to Ice Storm Arena earlier, getting myself some class points on it. to just level this thing up. There is some multi-target on there that of course does help out with that, but you know, all in, Mage is one of those classes that when I first started the game I really enjoyed Mage because the animations were just cool to see yourself fire a fireball, the ice bomb, whatever you want to call it. So I do have quite a good nostalgia feel with the Mage class. However, I think back in the day I was more just a standard warrior guy, to be honest. Here's how the 3 different playstyles we had going on there compared to each other, of course with our different enhancements. So let us move on to the last one, which is going to be Rogue. The Rogue class footwork cooldown 32 seconds down to 16 seconds, footwork duration from 15 down to 7. We have stiletto cooldown 60 down to 20, concealed blade duration 20 down to 7, and incisives added a 10% hit chance to the class. Not overly many changes to Rogue, it plays pretty much exactly the same. It will run out of mana pretty quick. That is how this class has always just played out. You want to be using skill free as and when you can. However, Rogue does have an interesting mechanic in that once a monster's HP is below the 40% mark, you will start dealing quite a nice amount of damage, and as you can see on screen, that is exactly what started happening here. The 9Ks were coming out, we hit a 10k, 3k, another 11, 4s, the numbers are flying all over the shop at this point. So you know, if you're in a battle and you just want to join in late, this could be a perfect class to kill still, especially if you're a lower level. We then stuck on Dauntless just to see how that one shaped up. The main thing that I've really taken away from all this is there's still pretty low tiered classes all round. Healer is probably still the best one overall, at least that's in my opinion. Rogue's a decent shout once you get health below the 40% mark, deal some alright damage. Mage and Warrior class are still just okay. They are pretty nice and steady, will keep you plodding along especially in the early game, but like I say, we were mostly here just to see really how the damage comparisons compared, stick on some enhancements, have a little bit of fun comparing, and I think we did that. We now have 4 AC tag classes to go along and bank, and maybe one day we'll whip Healer out for a particular purpose if we're ultraing at some point. Anyway folks, as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back doing normal class reviews very soon. Now we've got even more Forge, that will make them slightly more spicier. As always, please do leave the video a like and of course subscribe, and I'll see you all again for another one incredibly soon.